Hey there! Today on Follow the Money, we're going to ask a simple question. Why could my mother in 1976 purchase a house while in Portland, Oregon, while earning this minimum wage of $2.30 an hour? And why can't we do that nowadays? Anyway, we're going to follow the money. But the first thing to understand about all of this is that it all began in 1976, 2 years before my mother bought her house. The Supreme Court in the Buckley decision, and then in 1976, and then in 1978, in the Valeo decision, decided that money spent in the political markets was free speech, pure free speech, just like the words that come out of your mouth. Spending money on politicians was free speech. And after that, tons of money by billionaires and their corporations flooded the political markets, and they bought a lot of things in those markets. So let's get with that. Well, the wealthy bought a lot of things in the political markets, the deregulated political markets. Among other things, they bought NAFTA, the North American Free Trade Agreement. They bought free trade with China. What they bought with deals like that and with Vietnam were the ability to export millions of jobs from this nation, tens of millions of jobs. Nike, for example, has about 1 million employees worldwide, and about 990,000 of them work outside of the United States. So there you have it. So we have a situation where there's a massive income redistribution scam going on. The billionaires are purchasing lower wages for you and higher profits for themselves. So, for example, let me show you on the whiteboard what happens. So here is a visual on the whiteboard. So in the USA, say you have this stick person earning $24 an hour in a factory, and then that job is exported to, say, China or Mexico or Vietnam, and the new employee makes $2. Well, that's $24 minus $2. That equals $22 an hour wealthy shareholders get from exporting each job. In the case of Nike, you're looking at 990,000 jobs. So as long as those jobs exist, there's been a huge, massive redistribution of income. And there's at least one study, and there's more than that, but there's this one big study from the Rand Corporation that I've mentioned before that shows that since 1976, $65 trillion has been, and they use the word taken, has been taken from the bottom 90% by the top 1%. So the top 1% has taken $65 trillion. Now, exporting jobs by the tens of millions is not the only way they've done that. They've done it a lot of ways, and we'll get to those in future adventures. I'm just giving you an example. But the result of exporting all those jobs is what? Well, according to the Ludwig Institute for Shared Economic Prosperity, we have a rate of unemployment, a real rate of unemployment today of 24.3% as of April 2025, compared to the official rate of 4.2%. Now, according to the Institute, the true rate of unemployment as defined by the Ludwig Institute measures the percentage of the U.S. labor force that is functionally unemployed. Using data compiled by the federal government's Bureau of Labor Statistics, the true rate of unemployment tracks the percentage of the U.S. labor force that does not have a full-time job, which is 35 hours or more a week. But they want one, has no job, or does not earn a living wage, conservatively pegged at $25,000 annually before taxes. So there you have it. So a lot more people can't afford to buy houses nowadays, but there's another group of people that can afford to buy houses, and we'll get to them now. Now, the wealthy bought a lot of things over the years, as I've mentioned. Lower wages, for example, but they also bought a lot of bailouts. So when the housing crisis came along, back in 2008, 2009, and housing prices dropped, and the stock market dropped, who got bailed out? Well, the rich did. And what do you think they did with the $26 trillion and more that the Federal Reserve gave them? You heard that correctly. $26 trillion. Now let me bring up the whiteboard and show you what that means. So I don't know if you could read this, but I'm going to read it to you just in case you can't. So in 2008, a rich person who lost 50% of their investment, until their investments losses were made up by the Federal Reserve. So if, for example, a billionaire lost $1 billion, say there was a billionaire worth $2 billion and it went down to $1 billion because the market dropped, the financial markets, the stock market, dropped about 50%, a little more than that at one point. And the Federal Reserve made up his losses. So in a matter of months, he goes from $2 billion to $1 billion, back up to $2 billion. So those losses are made up by the $26 trillion the Federal Reserve handed out to billionaires and their corporations, as well as additional billions and hundreds of billions of dollars by the government, and a lot of political corruption during the Obama regime. And we'll get into that one day, but that played significant roles. But what happened to the person, or all the people, say, who are financially average, hard-working middle-class people, white collar, blue collar, it doesn't matter. They have their 401ks, right? Their IRAs. So, but in 2007, if they had a $200,000 in their IRA or their 401k, well, it dropped with the market, right? So it dropped 50%. So all of a sudden in 2008, 2009, their $200,000 of investment goes down to $100,000. So that's a 50% drop. But how much does it have to go up in order to make up for that loss? Well, it has to make up for a 50% loss from 200,000 to 100,000. It has to climb $100,000 or 100% in order to make up for the loss. And I know a lot of people, I know a few people actually, but I'm sure there are lots of people who it took them years after 2008, 2009 to stick money in their IRAs and in their 401ks in order to make up for that 50% loss. They had to wait for the market to climb, and they had to stick a lot of additional money in there. Here is a report by Fox News, dated May 22nd, 2024. Real estate investors snatching up record share of affordable homes, report finds. Goes on to read, home ownership has slipped out of the reach for millions of Americans amid an astronomical rise in mortgage rates and an ongoing inventory shortage. Adding to the list of challenges for potential home buyers in the United States, investors and hedge funds are also snatching up properties. So, with housing prices crumbling in 2008, 2009, all the way through 2011, what do you think the billionaires did with that $26 trillion bailout money? You bet. They went right into the housing market. And they're buying up millions. They've been buying up millions of homes since then. And of course, that jacks up the price of houses for everybody else. And when you look at your real income, and you look at the high realistic unemployment rate you have today, regular people just simply don't have the money to buy houses whose prices are going out of sight because the government not only provided billions of dollars to the billionaires to get into the housing market, but also the Federal Reserve provided $26 trillion. And nobody else got any of that money. But anyway, that's it for today. Looks like a nice day. It's pretty sunny, and I'm going to be out of here. And that's John Hively for today. You guys have a good one.